Hello, I'm Chris. Welcome to Chris's Adventure Stories. In the following videos, I'm going to be telling you guys the story of my life. My life has been filled with adventure. Just to give you a brief outline of who I am, I grew up in northern Minnesota, up in Duluth, and I got my first taste of adventure just playing in a little creek behind my house. I'd go there with my brothers and we'd build forts and climb on the little cliffs, and kind of gave me an idea of what being outdoors and being adventurous was. When I turned 15, I got introduced to the Explorer Scouts, and this group that I got hooked up with was unlike any other scouting organization as far as I know. What these guys did, so it was basically a climbing, caving, and canoeing club, and we'd go on these climbing trips. Some of my first climbing experience was at the North Shore of Lake Superior at a place called Palisade Head. And just to give you an idea of what it's like to climb for your first time at a place like Palisade Head, it's terrifying. You get lowered in over Lake Superior, an ocean, on these cliffs that are overhanging up to 200 feet tall, and on this really sharp, fractured rock. It's called rhyolite, and it's got quartz crystals in it, and it's just kind of this gnarly rock. And you're getting lowered in by your teenage buddy, and you're just kind of hoping for the best, trying to struggle your way to the top. So those are my first climbing experiences, and they were awesome. We would also go on these canoe trips up to the Boundary Waters, and we'd often take a rack of climbing gear and go explore like new cliffs up there. And I thought that was wild. I remember the feeling of being on rock that it seemed like no one had climbed before, and that feeling was very intoxicating for me. We also did caving trips where I remember this one cave system we got involved with. It was called Spring Valley Caverns, but there was this one cave where we ended up digging a new cavern. There was like a clay plug at the back of this room, and over the course of a month we dug away at this thing until we opened up a whole new system. And once again, I remember that feeling of being in an area where no one had been before. And to have these experiences as a young boy was very impactful for me and formed a lot of my decisions and my desires for adventure coming forward. So when I was about 16, 17, I kind of quit the Scouts and wanted to branch out on my own. I bought all my own climbing gear, started teaching all my buddies how to climb, and it didn't take long to climb everything that there was to climb in northern Minnesota. And I knew that I needed to move on from there. So eventually I wound up in Colorado, and then eventually in California, and I just kind of each step of the way I started upping the ante on my climbing adventures. And eventually I wound up just going from place to place around the world. And I'm going to be telling some of those stories. I mean, I've been to Kyrgyzstan. That was the first place I got my first ascent, was in Kyrgyzstan on this crazy expedition, and I'll tell that whole story. I've also, I've been to Pakistan, I've been to British Columbia, Chile, just to kind of give you an idea of some of these trips. So my trip to like the Bugaboos, let's say, in British Columbia, my partner Dave and I, we were doing this new route up the west face of North Hauser Tower, and it's this remote 3,000 foot alpine wall, and we ended up getting stuck up there for 8 days, and like 5 of them were in storms. We were up on the summit ridge for 4 days in a blizzard, which was insane. We had like 4 days of food, and we ended up enduring rockfall, getting hit by lightning, and pretty hardcore starvation, I'd have to say. But we did manage to get a first ascent on that route, but it was a very hard one. I've had some really interesting work opportunities too that I'll be talking about. I've worked as a rigger, a tower climber. I used to build radio towers. Some of the most epic storms I've experienced in my life have been on top of radio towers. I remember this one in Pueblo. I was on top of this 500-foot tower, and the storm came in, and I'm trying to bolt a reflector right at the top of this thing, and I could see the storm coming in. it radioed down. They couldn't see it coming in, so I had to like stay up there. And I remember this thing hitting us, and the whole tower just bent over like a blade of grass, and I could see the guy wires were just tight as guitar strings, you know, and then the leeward guy wire was just completely slack, but I could taste the electricity in my mouth, and lightning was striking the adjacent towers, and that was one of the worst experiences of my life. But and a lot of my adventures, it seems like they involve storms. A lot of my climbing adventures, or work adventures for that matter, have involved some kind of crazy weather phenomena. And I'll talk about my terror of lightning, because I've been just terrorized by lightning and storms, or other natural phenomena. I mean, I've been caught in an avalanche, and I've witnessed climbing accidents. I'm going to talk about the loss of two of my best buddies on this earth in climbing accidents. So definitely some tragedy. And I've had a lot of frustration in my life as well. Just trying to figure out what it is that I'm doing, what my purpose in life is, and trying to figure out why do I want to keep doing these adventures. It's kind of a question that I still ponder, and I'm going to be discussing it and hoping to come to some kind of conclusions. Maybe this can be therapeutic, just doing these videos. But on the next video, we'll kind of start from the beginning, and I'll take you through what life was like growing up in Duluth, and we'll just go from there. Thanks for joining me.